Hey everybody, I'm Jack with Future Pastimes, and I'm the designer of the Ikaz and Moritani expansion, which is the third expansion for the Classic Dune board game, the 2019 edition from Gale Force 9. One of the variants in that expansion is something called Nexus cards, and this is a card that you can draw at the end of a Spice Blow and Nexus phase in which there was a Nexus, and other players are in alliances, but you are not. Now, each Nexus card corresponds to one of the 12 factions in Dune, so the base 6 or the two factions from each of the expansions, and you use the whole deck, so it doesn't matter which factions you have in play, all 12 Nexus cards can be used, but the effect that you can have on it will be one of three, and that will correspond to whether or not a faction is in the game and whether or not you've drawn the Nexus card that matches your faction. And we're going to take a look at the Fremen Nexus card and look at the three different effects. So the first effect is called Betrayal, and that is if the Fremen are in the game, but you are not the Fremen when you draw it. The second one is called Cunning, and that is if you are the Fremen and you draw your own Nexus card. And then the third one is called Secret Ally, and that is if you draw that card and the Fremen are not one of the factions that is in the game. So we'll take a look at each of the effects, starting with the Betrayal, and it says cancel a Fremen advantage. So it works a lot like a Karama would with stopping some advantage, but here it's very specific what it can do. So it's going to do one of two things. It's going to prevent the Fremen from riding the worm this turn, so they don't get to ride it at all, or prevent the Fremen from moving 2 territories during shipping and movement. So you say, yeah, you can't do that. You can wait to play to see what movement action they're going to make, and once you do play it, they can make a completely different movement action. So it works very much like the Karama effect does for stopping the movement. So that's how it works when you are betraying the Fremen there. Now the Cunning effect, again, is if the Fremen draw their own card, and there is a rule that if you do draw your own Nexus card, you can immediately discard it to draw another one. And that is because some of the effects for the Cunning really are only applicable if you're playing Advanced. So it's a good rule for Basic, but you can use that same rule in Advanced. So if you draw your own, you can say, well, I want to see if I can get a different one that might help me out more than this one. But a lot of the Cunning effects are very effective. So let's take a look at the one for Cunning for Fremen only. So if a sandworm appears in a territory with no forces, any forces you have in one desert territory may ride the worm to any territory subject to storm and occupancy rules. So this gives them a chance if they've got a bunch of forces that were maybe collecting spice from a previous spice blow, and they may be sort of trapped out where they are because you don't really want to spend the movement to move them, but a worm comes up and you can say, you know what, I am going to use this to get those guys, and they can get a free movement anywhere, even somewhere they wouldn't normally be able to get to with 2 movement. So it is a little bit of a special case, so you might want to say, oh, I'll take my chances with something else. It'll just depend. When it's time to draw this, if you see that you have forces in multiple desert territories, which for me, when I'm playing the Fremen, is always the case. I'm always so spread out. I probably would keep this. Finally, we have the Secret Ally effect. Normally, this works as a way to simulate if you are actually in an alliance with that faction. In some cases, the effects are a little bit different, but in all cases, a Nexus card is play once and then discard. So Secret Ally, you may either avoid losing forces to a sandworm, which you would do if you were allied, or revive a total of 3 of your forces for free during revival. So if you only had 1 free revival, you could play this to get 3 free revival. This is a great one for Chom because they have 0 free revival. Somebody like House Atreides or House Harkonnen with 2 free revival, they're not going to get a lot out of this one, but they hold on to it because 1 extra free, if you're not worried about avoiding a sandworm, might come in handy. So that's it for the Fremen ones. Now the basic rules again for the Nexus card is you can only draw one at the end of a Nexus if there was a Nexus and there is an alliance between other players. If another one has occurred and you have a Nexus card, you can discard the one that you have and draw a new one. And if you get into an alliance while you're holding one, you have to discard it. So you won't be able to keep it forever if you plan to get into an alliance. So that's how the Fremen one works. If you have any questions, let me know, and let me know what you think of Nexus cards, if you've had a chance to use them and see them in action, and let me know if you've seen the Fremen one in action. The effects on this one are relatively mild, so some of the other ones are much more powerful. It's just going to vary depending on the situations. Some edge cases, they'll be very effective, but in others, not so much. There you have it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.